Hi, this is Carrie Brownstein.
This is DJ Premier.
This is Darren Aronofsky.
You got the RZA right here.
Rose McGowan.
Radiohead.
Aisha Tyler.
Tribe Called Quest. Fred Armisen.
Prince Paul.
Javier Munoz. Seth Meyers.
Frankie Cosmos.
Flying Lotus.
Hi, we're Chaim, and you're listening to the Talkhouse Podcast.
What's up? What is up? It's your host, Elia Einhorn. Welcome back to the Talkhouse Podcast. This week, I'm joined from the Windy City by...
Josh Modell, Executive Editor. What's up, Elia?
Hey. Josh, tell me, what has brought you joy in this last week of isolation?
Oh, man, putting me on the spot. I made some biscuits yesterday. That was good. It's mostly food in isolation. I've been making, like many people, a lot of things that involve a lot of butter and sugar.
I'm right there with you. I've definitely put on a few pounds myself during this time of quarantine. And our producer, Mark, actually sent me a picture popping out of his pants. His belly does not fit anymore. His waistline has expanded. So we here at the Talkhouse are all in agreement. Bring on the butter.
Yum.
Well, beside all of his pants-popping activity, Mark has helped me set up a studio in the new place that we're staying in Philadelphia. We had to move houses. So if I sound a little different, listeners, that's because I'm in a new Porta studio. Things are changing these days.
You're going to have a Philly accent all of a sudden?
Yeah, I'm eating a lot of water rice, and I love the Eagles. Now, I'm glad you mentioned accents, Josh, because today's show is absolutely full of incredible accents. We've got Bristol by way of Wales. We've got a ton of great Glaswegian Scottish accents. We've got an Irish accent. And that's because today's show is a little bit different than a normal Talkhouse podcast. This is an extended Q&A with Joe Talbot, leader of the fantastic band IDLES.
Yeah, this Q&A was recorded in the before time at the wonderful Barris Art and Design, which is situated behind the famous Barrowlands venue in Glasgow.
Yes, and having been to the Barrowland multiple times, Josh, and many shows in Glasgow, I need to tell our listeners, Glaswegian fans are known for being ratchet. They take pride in it, and this Q&A is no exception to that, which I just love. Now, one cool detail also is the event was hosted by Alan McGee. He of Creation Records, the man who signed Oasis, the Jesus Mary Chain, and so many others. He was the master of ceremonies. And so you'll hear him occasionally pop in to move the microphone around and keep things going. The reason we wanted to run this Q&A now is because we are celebrating the group's newest track, Mr. Motivator.
Yeah, so the real Mr. Motivator who inspired the song was this guy, Derek Evans, who was a workout sensation in the 90s in the UK. I guess the American equivalent would be like Richard Simmons. So IDLES had fans submit self-shot clips of their workouts, and they made a really fun video.
An awesome video. Let's take a quick listen to IDLES' Mr. Motivator.
Like David Attenborough, clubbing seal covers with LeBron James. How'd you like them cliches?
I love it, man. I'm here for it.
I feel energized, motivated.
I do too. And Joe Talbot is an interesting guy because he talks a lot about the very gritty realities of life and the difficulties that we experience and that he's experienced. But he's also got a very positive and loving bent to a lot of his lyrics. And that comes out in this talk. Now, IDLES' lyrics take on everything from depression to white privilege to toxic masculinity. And it's awesome to see that their heavily lauded records, Brutalism and Joy's an Act of Resistance, have made them Fest headliners, Mercury Prize nominees, and definitely one of the most fascinating groups in music right now.
Yeah, and like you'll hear in the talk, Joe is all about being honest in his life and in his music. He puts himself out there 100%.
Yeah, this is a warts and all artist. Like myself, Joe was born in Wales. Unlike myself, he spent a lot of his time in Bristol, England, and he has been through quite a lot in his life.
Yeah, I mean, his story is fascinating and kind of harrowing. His mom had a stroke when he was about 16, and he ended up being her primary caretaker until her death. He and his wife lost a baby who was stillborn, and he talks about all that. And he's dealt with addiction in his life, which you'll hear about in the talk as well.
And the thing about Joe Talbot is that all of the events of his life inform his lyrics. And seeing IDLES live is an incredible thing. I got to catch them at South by Southwest a couple years ago. They absolutely slayed the room. And it seems like any music fan who sees IDLES live becomes an evangelist for that experience and tells everyone else to check them out.
Totally.
Have you seen them, Josh?
I have. I saw them one time, and it's just like that. And it was after many people said, "Have you seen this band?" And I don't use this comparison lightly, but it's the same thing people always said about Fugazi. Even if people didn't love their records, it was like, oh, you have to see this.
It is quite a show, and that's partly down to Joe as an amazing frontman, but it's also the band behind him. Mark Bowen is one of the two guitarists in the group. He is also, as Joe mentions in this talk, the man who plays in his, quote, pants, as the Brits would say, or as we'd say here in America, in his underwear. Lee Kiernan is the other guitarist. Adam Devonshire plays bass, and John Beavis bangs the drums. The band have put out 3 records. Their first was Brutalism in 2017. The next year saw Joy as an Act of Resistance, and just last year, we got A Beautiful Thing, IDLES live at Le Bataclan.
All worth hearing, but I think if I had to start with one, it would be Joy as an Act of Resistance.
The band is currently at work on their 3rd studio LP.
It's going to be huge.
Josh, part of the reason why I want to run this on the show, even though it's a little bit different than our normal format, is this is one of the most amazing Q&As I've ever heard. And I've been to and listened to a lot. Throughout the 50 or so minutes, Joe and the audience get into toxic masculinity and pop star deflation.
We hear about the role of violence in IDLES music.
We get an unexpected lesson on mindfulness, which I need these days.
Yeah, and I got to learn about the process of developing your own artistic language.
Yeah, and you know, so many other great bands are mentioned. Everything from Joe recording with Mike Skinner of The Streets to turning a Sleaford Mods taunt of IDLES into a fantastic song.
Yeah, and I love how he kind of gets into it with one of the audience members about this limited edition IDLES record that included in the vinyl some of his own mother's ashes.
Yes.
And how expensive that record is on Discogs now.
Yep, one of the most expensive records I've ever heard of. Plus, you still have to pay postage.
Ha!
Listeners, keep it locked. Here's Joe Talbot.
All right.
So John's going to take his microphone round, and whatever you want to ask Joe, John's going to bring the microphone to you.
So it's a bit like being at school. If you just put your hand up, no. Whoa, Jesus. Right, I'll take the easy one first, the closest.
Hi, Joe.
All right.
I can't understate the impact you've had on my life because I've got 2 mental ginger daughters, and one of the very few things that they agree on is their love of IDLES. So anytime a battle kicks off in my house, the only thing I need to say is, what would Joe do? And that solves it. The question I have for you is the remixing that's done under the IDLES name. So the Metronomy track.
Oh, yeah.
And the Melt Yourself Down track.
Yeah.
That are remixed under the IDLES name. How does that come about and who's actually doing that?
At the moment, it's Bowen. That's the pants guy. To say he's a brilliant mind, and also one of the reasons why we will never be taken seriously as a band. He's a fucking prick, but I love him. So yeah, he started out, we met because he was a techno DJ and I was kind of hip-hop DJ. I think I was hip-hop DJ at the time. I was doing like indie nights as well. And a promoter friend of ours introduced us. So we started the band, and then as we've gone on, we've always talked about doing more together that's like production-led, which is why Bowen and I kind of took the steering wheel on this last album in writing a lot of it with mixing and production in mind. So he's gone on ahead because he knows how to remix and stuff already. I'm actually in the process of learning. I've got a mate of mine doing lessons once a week on Ableton and stuff. But yeah, so it comes about where people ask you to remix, and now we've had 3 months off. Bowen's had the time to do it. And then hopefully him and I are going to start doing stuff together soon. I'm just a bit behind on the learning process. He's done a really good job. The good thing about the remixes are with Bowen is that we had conversations about what he wanted them to sound like as remixes, and what he's made and what he articulated are really close, which I think is fucking great considering they're his first 2 remixes. So.
Carries over the ethos of Idols without actually sounding exactly like it.
Yeah, well, that's what we want to do with remixing, and we're going to try and remix this album ourselves, as in do like a live remixing and tour that. Our artistic language is something that we've learned together, the 5 of us, is that we find that violence is paramount to our language. And violence isn't necessarily punching someone. Violence can be a violent brushstroke or a word that has a lot of fricatives in it, or the tempo of a song can be violent. The bass can sound violent. There's a lot of ways in which we find violence is a beautiful way of cutting through what we're living in right now as people. And with anything we do, whether it's a t-shirt or an album cover or a remix, a song, a feature on someone else's album, it's important that we stay within our own language and try and sound like Idols, because it's who we are. You know, it's not a brand. It's just we found a way of articulating who we are as a collective of friends, you know? Yeah, that's Bowen in all his glory. Thank you.
Hi, man. I've seen some interviews with you fairly recently where you talk about Grayson Perry's The Descent of Man,
yeah,
and how that's kind of influenced some of your work. I was just wondering if there's any other like books or authors that have had that kind of influence on your work.
Yeah. Only joking. So yeah, I was a late reader. I didn't start reading until I was about 20. So I had to do that catch-up thing where you read like On the Road, Catcher in the Rye, all the books that you're supposed to read when you're 15. But the beauty of reading On the Road when you're 24 is that you don't feel like you need to go traveling and find yourself. You just realize it's a good book. Influences, though, I think, book-wise, at the moment, I mean, I think there's no novels that have really affected me in that way. Like poetry, like Sylvia Plath and things like that. They affect me, and I go away and I feel like they've kind of helped me transcend into their world a bit, for a bit. But that's all it is. It's like a beautiful thing that someone else has made. Whereas like non-fiction really influences my work, because I can then take those facts and make them my lies. Do you know what I mean? I can express, because I can connect on those things. I'll be more specific. So with Grayson Perry's Descent of Man, which was a big influence. It wasn't a big influence in terms of what I was writing about, but it helped me articulate. The beautiful thing about Grayson Perry's book is that he has a simplicity to what he says around the concept of masculinity. Because it's not toxic masculinity, it's just masculinity, which is often toxic when it becomes pressures on how to behave. And if you're not, then you're a bad so-and-so, then it is toxic. But he just explained it in a way that encouraged me and helped me articulate it myself. That's where Samaritans came from, was being able to kind of sum something up and be as concise as possible within a 3.5 minute popular music song. Books that have really helped me and influenced my writing are things that realign me. I try and use our music as a window onto me and a mirror onto you. As you listen, as a dialogue, I'm just showing you what my life is. And hopefully you can reflect on that and not see it as me trying to tell you how to live your life. But in the projection of how I live my life, you see that comparison as a way of actually seeing how you are living yours. That's the dialogue. I'm not on a soapbox. I am on a stage. And I have got a microphone. But it's not a soapbox. It's supposed to be a window onto who I am. It's never going to be completely true, because that's impossible. But it can be, I think it can be sincere, and I think that's all I can be. That's as close as I'll get to the truth, is through sincerity. Like my motives are there. I want to be true, so I'm giving it my best shot. But At the moment, I'm reading a book called The Power of Now, which is a book about spirituality and enlightenment. But the basis on that book, and what I'm really working on at the moment through cognitive behavioral therapy and reading books on spirituality and mindfulness, is focusing on the present and understanding the past is just a bank of memories in your head, and it warps and changes. All your experiences that you have and you remember aren't what they actually were. All you have, and the only thing you can do, is be now and make that as poignant and as beautiful as you can. And the more of the past you carry with you, and the more shame you carry with you, the less present you can be now. The more you're worried about the future, the less present you can be now. So, it's a very deep book. But thank you. But it's helping me be present, and it's helping me with these Q&As and things like that, because I'm not trying to get anything out of this other than right now. When you ask me a question, I answer it. I'm not trying to hold this idea of who I am. I'm just being me. And then afterwards, I'll forget it and lie to the next man. But yeah, so non-fiction really helps me because it helps me, and then I can be who I am on record, you know? Thank you.
I know that in album 1, you were kind of influenced by other music you were listening to, and in album 2, it was more cathartic. So I hope it's not too much to pry, but what was the influence behind album, well, I know it's not out yet, but what's the influence behind album 3? If you don't mind me asking.
I do.
Sorry.
No, I do. Well, actually, I don't need to apologise. You're wrong. Album 1, Brutalism, as it's called, wasn't necessarily about influences from other music. Before Brutalism, our 2 EPs, we were kind of fumbling around with who we were. And as anyone here who writes or makes paintings or whatever, to create your own artistic language takes time. And the more you do, the more you learn about yourself. The more you learn about yourself, the more fluent you become in reflection and expression. That's how artistic language is developed, and that's how you learn. With that, you absorb all the shit you love. Hopefully, don't absorb the shit you don't love. And you copy, and you kind of regurgitate what you love. And in your kind of early ages of Facebook, toddler period of artistic language, it's kind of naive, and it's like, you know, I used to joke about it, but it was true. Bowen would go away and like listen to Radiohead and then come into practice and just start playing Radiohead songs. And I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? We're not Radiohead. But you have to go through those processes of finding out your own language before you can kind of amalgamate everything you love into your own dialect. And that just is where we were around Brutalism. But Brutalism was cathartic. That was the explosion of where my mum dying was a catalyst for me realizing that I wanted to please everyone too much. And the more you try and please your audience and want them to want you, the more dislocated you are from expression. Because you're just constantly worrying about what it is that you think is good. You know, everyone loves that band, so I should sound like that band. Whereas really, to be loved, and people, when they really look up to people, when they look up to Nick Cave or fucking Kurt Cobain or whoever it is, those kind of like people that are like worshipped, is you want to be that person because they're free of the shackles of kudos. Those people do not give a fuck about kudos. They don't care about being loved. They want to be loved, but they have the idiosyncrasy and the bravery to just be in their art. And that's what's inspiring, and that's what's loved by people, you know? And my mum dying really encouraged me to just be like, fuck it, I don't care anymore. I'm just going to do me. And then Joy was kind of a reaction to brutalism, because it was the next period in my life where after my mum died, I had to pick up the pieces, and it was a document of that. And I realized that I was kind of taking a lot on. So the art had to be more, I used sloganeering and I used catchphrases and I used kind of nursery rhymes type lyrics and that kind of Orwellian way of just taking something and put it into one phrase, because I had to, because I was collecting myself. I was regrouping and trying to fix my life and put it out there. And me doing that, making it, simplifying it and putting it out with as little faff as possible helped me move forward. So that's what Joy was. This album is a reaction to Joy, because this is the next period in my life. And the influences are just where I'm at right now, which is really, again, to react from Joy is to accept that I'm now not who I was 3 years ago when we wrote Joy, and I'm better than I was, as in I'm more well mentally, and I understand who I am a bit more. I've recovered from losing my mum and losing my daughter. I'm recovering, obviously, but I'm in a lot better place than I was, and that clarity is what I wanted. I wanted to try and express a sense of unity within and express a sense of clarity as pragmatism, to try and build something to work on and move forward. So this album is around the idea of consolidation, self-belief, self-love. Joy was like, right, you know, opening up the conversation of releasing yourself from the confines of like what it is to be beautiful and perfect, and realizing you'll never be beautiful and perfect if you're chasing a fucking advert, because you're not ever going to be that fucking advert, no matter how hard you try. The people in the advert will never be the fucking advert. So after Joy, I'm now like, right, well, if I'm going to look in the mirror and say I love myself, I actually need to start doing that. And that's what this album is about. It's about consolidation, self-belief, a momentary acceptance of the self, to really be present and really actually accept who I am, and hopefully really accept who you are.
I don't know if I can get through here. This chap here, if you can pass the mic on to him.
Don't drop it.
How you doing?
I'm all right, thanks. How are you?
Not bad. Just wanted to ask, I first started listening to IDLES when you brought out Brutalism.
Sorry to hear that.
But when I started listening to a band, you expand. Started listening to your first EP, which was Welcome, and then it went on to Meet, and then obviously your new album. Was there ever a time that you thought, shit, this might not go anywhere and you might give up, or you just had to keep going? Was there ever a time that you had to do that and just push through and powering through, and then that's how Brutalism, and it got bigger, and then you brought out Joy and it was even bigger? Like, was there ever a time you thought, oh, this isn't going to get anywhere?
No. No. But that's not because I have some sort of like fucking imaginary stab vest where nothing hurts me and I don't have any self-doubt. I've got loads of self-doubt, and like I've been through self-loathing and drug addiction and alcoholism where I was a real cunt to myself, you know? But with music, and what I learned was I was in a privileged position where my dad is an artist. He's a full-time sculptor, and he has been since he quit his job as an art teacher in the 90s, I think. Yeah, after Thatcher. And he taught me from a very young age that success is in the doing. It sounds cliched, But my father lives a miracle. He gets up every morning at 6 and he goes to his studio and he works on something he loves, builds something that he finds beautiful, that is an expression of himself, and then he goes home and does it again the next day. And that's where the magic is for him. He hasn't got big exhibitions in London and, you know, all that shit. He just is an artist. And that's a success. That's where he is. He gets to do art all the time. And like, I had to have so many conversations with the band about not looking up and paying attention to what success is and these bands that they don't like who are doing so fucking well. And why aren't the bands that we love doing better and all that shit? And why aren't we doing better? Why aren't we being picked up? Where's the bloody record label signing us for? And it was never important to me. What was important was being in the room and learning my craft and then learning my language. And you can do that and find a place that means that for the rest of your life, you'll be happy. And that isn't going to come from a record label. It isn't going to come from sales, from ticket sales. It's from the doing and truly finding your own voice and making something that you love and putting it out into the world and then forgetting about it and making something else. Like, it sounds, there's a psychologist who wrote a book called Flow. His name is Mihai Csikszentmihalyi. So I won't bother spelling that. But it's called Flow. You can get it as an audio book. And it's about finding true joy, is about being present again in the moment. This is a different person, but same idea. Is to just find joy in everything you do. Going for a shit, writing a letter, going to work. Set yourself goals, be present in the moment and truly find joy in what you do. Because all you have is now. And with that in mind, if you can find that and actually find a way of making music, if you're a musician, or even if you're not a musician, it's like, it doesn't fucking matter. Like, find something you love doing and be with it. And time becomes irrelevant. Now is relevant. You are relevant. Yeah, thank you.
Hi there, how you doing?
Where are you?
I'm here.
Hello, yeah. All right, mate.
And hi, Joe. I was wanting to ask you a little bit about the Downs Festival last year. That was the first time I'd ever been in Bristol. And as someone who's been in a band for about 10 years, it was an amazing, it just made me want to be in a band again, watching how great that atmosphere was.
Yeah.
It was also the first time I'd been in Bristol. It was also the first time I'd been on Magic Mushrooms. Not ever. First time I've been in Magic Mushrooms in a while. And
what does that even mean?
Yeah.
It's the first time I've done Magic Mushrooms.
Well, it's the first time I had Magic Mushrooms in Bristol. And that's what it kind of means if it comes down to it.
I fucking love you, man.
Yeah. Well, I love you too, mate, honestly. Just watching you live just made me want to be in a band again. And it was interesting because I was on holiday. First time in Bristol, I was there for a week and I was actually reading Alan's book as well, so shout outs to Alan. So it was just, I just came back refreshed and it was like reading that book and it's like great synchronicity or serendipity. I don't really know the difference between the two, but it's good to see the two of you on stage. But another thing that happened that made me want to be in a band, would just lit the fire again, was, I hope I'm pronouncing the name right, Dan and the Delco.
Yeah.
It's at Heavy Lungs. They played after you at the same time as Lauren Hill, and just watching the chaos that they created in the smaller stage was brilliant. So I just wonder if you could tell me a bit about that, because I never knew the story. I just heard rumours on the night, and I was on mushrooms in Bristol, so I don't remember if any of it was true or any of it was real.
I have no idea what you want me to say. Do you want me to tell you what your mushroom trip was like? After the show, I suffer from anxiety, or I used to. I don't suffer from anxiety at the moment, mainly because I've given up drugs and also therapy and spiritual audiobooks that I've just thrown out there. But at the time, I came on stage and I was bombarded by people telling me they'd see me play shows. People come up to you and they'll go, I saw you at Dundee. And that's all right. It's cool. But when there's 14 people telling you at the same time they saw you at different places, I felt displaced. And I went home and had a panic attack. So that was my downs. I don't know what else. I don't know what else. I didn't watch Heavy Lungs. Heavy Lungs apparently had an amazing show, and they're a really good band, and I love them. They are my brothers. So thanks to tell us about your mushroom trip. Just so you know, if any of you do want to come up to me afterwards and tell me that you saw me at a show, please do. It's not a thing. It's just, it was that there was about 14 people all telling me at the same time. None of them were acknowledging each other talking. I find that really fucking weird. Like after shows, 4 people will be talking at you at the same time. It's nervousness. It's like a nervous energy because, you know, you're meeting me and you saw me on stage. So just have a look around you next time you talk to me. Don't be shy. Next question.
Hi, Joe.
All right?
Very good, thanks. How are you?
I'm rambling.
Good. Well, that wasn't actually my question, but I wanted to say, first of all, thank you for being the voice that you are and speaking about the things that you do. I really, really appreciate that.
Pleasure.
And I think a lot of people here would feel exactly the same. The ethics of your music and the things that you talk about are actually the most interesting thing for me, although I love the music as well. But what I wanted to ask you about was the ethics. So you mentioned earlier on about supporting the food fighters and whether it sounded like musically you weren't on the same wavelength as them and you had a reticence about supporting them. But I wondered whether if there was an opportunity to support a band that you didn't ethically agree with, that could offer you 100,000 people a night, whether you would, as a band, refuse that.
Absolutely. Like, you gotta look at the bigger picture. What I meant with the Foo Fighters was that I wasn't a fan of the Foo Fighters in terms of I didn't own any of their music. But like, Dave Grohl is notoriously a nice guy, and I can vouch for that. I met him and he was a really lovely dude. It's just like, you know, it's like stadium rock. It's just not my thing. But obviously, they've written good songs. And it was a good opportunity to play on a big stage and see how we translated as a band and to get some new people in. And it worked. I mean, there's a lot of people there that thought we were dog shit. But, you know, it was a great experience. And we got to meet Foo Fighters. It was great. But I wouldn't be able to realign my ethics with supporting a band that I disagree with politically. But then it depends. Like, I think a lot of people maybe misconstrued what Joy of an Act of Resistance was about. Obviously, that album is from the left-leaning side of politics. Not centre-left, left. But people often thought it was centre-left because we're talking about having a conversation with the opposition. But that's just because I feel that empathy and open-mindedness are the only tools that can kill fascism. And I wouldn't say that I definitely wouldn't perform with an artist that I completely disagree with, but it depends. Like, I wouldn't do it just for the money, and you can't be that short-sighted about a show. Just because they offer you a certain amount of cash doesn't mean that in the long run you won't lose loads of fans because you're playing with a racist. Like, I'm not gonna play with Morrissey. Just because I don't feel like I don't think It's a weird one, man. Like, I played a Michael Jackson song last night. I was DJing, and then I realised he's a fucking paedophile. Like, that is weird, isn't it? That's weird that I didn't even put two and two together until I was playing the song. Like, everyone was kicking off about this Gary Glitter song in the Joker film, which is completely overrated and definitely not one of Joaquin Phoenix's best films. But, like, what's wrong with playing a Gary Glitter song in the film? Doesn't get the fucking money. He's a convicted child molester. But, like, I mean, not that I would play with Gary Glitter, don't get me wrong. I'm just like, it's often people struggle separating the person from their music. But I think you'll find a lot of people that you love are cunts. Like, honestly, like Jimi Hendrix was a piece of shit to women. Like, James Brown was a fucking psychopath. Like, the list is endless of people. John Lennon was horrible to people. He was a fucking sociopath. But people hail him as this because he changed his ways. But everyone can redeem themselves. I was a piece of shit when I was younger. I had political morals, but I was a violent young man with lots of fucking problems. And if I was not forgiven by the people I love, I wouldn't be able to be here right now. So where's the line? I don't go around fucking masturbating in offices and like, you know, I understand that I get it. Like, my behavior now has changed. But when I was younger, I was a piece of shit. I was confused and lost, and like, I needed nurturing. I needed help. I needed someone to guide me in the right direction. I needed people to forgive me, but also hold me accountable. The problem lies in, like, where does that stop? I mean, Christ, I don't want to say it because it's being recorded, but I've been a lot, and like, I don't know, like, what do you want? What do you want from musicians? The whole point is that we're being honest. Like, you can just not listen to it if you disagree with them. Obviously, if they're fucking abhorrent human beings, then boycott, of course. I'm not going to play with someone who's an asshole, but there's a line, you know, and people will make mistakes, and you have to be able to have conversations with those people. Otherwise, they won't change, they won't develop, and they won't become better. It's also context, you know, what was wrong with their situation? What's their background? How can we help them change? Hold them accountable, but forgive them. In the long run, you've got to, otherwise you're just carrying the burden of loads of other people's mistakes. All those amazing musicians that were heavily into drugs would have done some savage shit. You know, but you got to put that in context, and you got to help them get clean. Otherwise, they're fucked. Am I right? Next.
Hi, Joe. I was just going to say, nowadays, when you die, you can get your ashes put into a vinyl if you get cremated. I was just going to ask if you were cremated, what would be your A side and what would be your B side and why?
It's a good question.
You do realise that I put my mum's ashes in a vinyl, right? It did a limited release of Brutalism, 100 copies with my mum's ashes in it. So I know about that. A-side would be The Rat by The Walkmen. And B-side would be Gary Glitter. B-side would be... I'll come back to you on that. Good question. Thank you. Hello? I don't have the mic.
Hello.
Hello?
I'm a collector of vinyl, and I'll pay a lot for stupid amounts of money for a vinyl, but like £10,000. That's like, it's something else. Like, that's just ridiculous.
Yeah?
But how do you feel about the fact that your mother's ashes are inside in that vinyl and it's going for £10,000 on Discogs? Has the world not just gone mad?
No. I mean, it has, but not because of that. I mean, it's just someone trying to sell it for £10,000.
But £4.49 delivery as well is a bit much now, you know?
That is fucking magic. I like that.
I would expect it handed to me on a silver salver now with like a personal, production of brutalism, now with that.
I personally don't care. When we released that limited edition, that was put up on Discogs almost immediately for £10,000, and loads of people kicked off about it. And it's a ludicrous amount of money, but just don't buy it. Like, that's what I think. Like, it's not worth it. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. Like, we sold it. I'm not going to sit here and judge someone for overselling something. I put my mum's ashes on a vinyl and sold it for money. There is money there. It's part of capitalism. I can't get on some sort of Marxist pedestal and be like, how dare they? Like, the point is that I sold it. My point was to try and artistically create a message where my mum's death was a huge part of that album. That's it. So her death, her ashes in the vinyl, it's an artistic expression of that. And then we sell it as a thing so that people can be part of that. But, like, it's gone. Like, sentimentalism, again, it's like, it doesn't help. Worrying about the past or some asshole that's selling it for 10 grand, it doesn't matter. It's not important. My mum's life is important. My album, what I do and how I project myself and all that, those are important things. And just that, it's just a farce. It doesn't matter, Fuck it. Like, I totally understand. I'm not trying to devalue your discipline. You think it's mental. I love the fact they've added postage. I do. If I was Duncan Bannatyne, I'd be in. Yeah?
Joe.
Yeah.
You all right, mate?
Yeah.
Cheers for doing this, mate. You're some man. I was just wondering, was a direct influence on the song I'm Scum? Or was it just like a build-up of a lot of different stuff?
I can't remember. I'm Scum.
Aye.
The song, was there something musically...
Like, was there something that happened that you were just like,
oh,
right,
yes,
I'm doing this?
I see what you mean.
Aye.
I thought you meant musically. You mean lyrically?
Aye, lyrically, aye.
Yes.
Can you tell us about it? No.
Yeah, fuck it. Jason Williamson from Sleaford Mods. Absolutely not. No. There's no need to boo him. There's nothing useful about a group of people booing someone who isn't here. Also, he's fucking talented. He's just a bit of an arsehole sometimes. But, like, I fucking love that band. I don't care what he says about me. I'm here right now. I'm in love with my life. Thank you very much for coming. So he said a bunch of stuff, and he specifically attacked my sincerity, and that's something that I struggle with. I don't like being. I mean, I don't normally give a shit if someone insults me, but someone who tells me that I'm a fucking liar or I'm faking what I'm doing, the amount of energy and love I put into this job, or to this, not this job, this thing with the people I love and gone through the things I've gone through, I fucking mean everything I do. I'm not joking. I will not have anyone try and sweep the rug from under what I love and what I've done. I genuinely fucking mean everything I've done. It doesn't mean to say that I haven't sometimes made mistakes or, like, not quite got what I was trying to do right. Like, I fucked up loads, but that's also part of the beauty of it, is that we all get to see the cracks in idols. We get to see the mistakes and enjoy those because perfection is boring. But it was like Roy Keane when he got fouled and totally got fucked up. And the guy screamed in his face and said, "You're a fucking liar," or something. And then for like a whole season, Roy Keane just remembered that he was told he was a liar. Because he's the kind of guy that doesn't go down. I'm not into football, but I just remember reading this story. So he came back the next season and broke the guy's leg. I goes, "That's what happens when you call me a fucking liar." So I went round to Jason. No, I didn't. But obviously, I couldn't beat him up because his neck's bigger than my fucking thigh. So I thought I'd write a song about it. The idea is that I realised that I was powerless in the situation of him attacking me because I was never going to respond. I'm not the kind of person that should or needs to respond. And there's a certain freedom in just allowing someone who's insulting you to accept that their truth is their truth. You can't control that, and it doesn't matter. Doesn't mean it's the truth, it's just their truth. If he wants to believe that I'm a charlatan or whatever, I'm pretending to be working class or whatever, he can go ahead. I've not once fucking lied to you guys, and I never will. And that's his fucking problem.
Just another quick one. I was just wondering, do you like the album We'll Live and Die in This Town by The Enemy? Because I think there's quite a few similarities between some of the songs.
I tried to sell drugs to them once. They were touring with Primal Scream, and I was... Is it Primal Scream? I was fucked up. Honestly, it was my cocaine years. Anyway, The Enemy, don't know, never listened to their album, sorry. But yeah, the point of the story was my reaction was to celebrate insults that are thrown your way and accept them as someone else's truth and turn them into something beautiful. Thanks for your question.
Hi, you're really here.
Hello.
Hi. I was just wondering what you think about in terms of young bands starting out, like, especially with social media, it just kind of drowns everything out. Like, young bands, like, we just can't get people coming to our gigs, essentially. How, outside social media, what can you really do to actually get people coming when people aren't going out and buying records or whatever else?
My advice, if my daughter was to start a band, I mean, she's 1, but I'll use her as an example. What I'd say, I think there's no point. Every band's different. Every band has different avenues to go down and different mistakes to make. And some people use the internet really well, some people don't, blah, blah, blah. The golden rule for me, and I'm sure you'd agree with this one, is that if you're playing to 5 people, play like it's your last gig on earth. Next time there'll be 10. So there's 10 people, play like it's your last gig on earth. Then there'll be 20. Then there'll be 40. Then there'll be 80. Then you'll be at Alexandra Palace. And that's it. Honestly, it's that. All the myriad of crap that you're surrounded by, your power is in your music and its performance, whether you perform it or not. So if you don't perform your music live, it's just in whether people connect with it as a record and distributing it out to as many people. But if you want to commit to the next 10 years, you'll be able to build a loyal fan base that will come to your shows because you've done it via word of mouth and just building that audience from 10 to 20, and it doubles, and then it quadruples, and then it tenfolds. And it will happen unless you're shit. You're not. You're not. But beyond that, I genuinely would just play the game of the internet as much as you want. But if you do it that way, you'll have people that are there for life because you built that as a relationship and a dialogue with people. And that is a different kind of fan because it's a fan that you're a fan of. You're fans together. That's the beauty of live music. Cool.
Hello. Hi. How you doing? This is just want to say this is like a fucking fever dream to me right now. I'm just going to ask about, are there any Scottish bands that has influenced you in any way? Like obviously there's Primal Scream, Frightened Rabbit, there's Twilight Sad. Even in an emotional level, has there been like any Scottish song that's like related to you in some way and you've thought, okay, I'm going to use this, I'm going to take this and kind of influence it?
Yeah, it's a bit lame because they're here tonight. Daddy's Gone was transformative for me lyrically, and we actually talked about it earlier, and there's pockets of time where lyrics cut through the ether of a million songs and change the perspective forever, and that's one of those songs. Idlewild, Mogwai, Primal Scream. Yeah, I mean, there's loads. I don't know. Not any specific, like, current influences, but to be honest, I've got to a point where I'm influenced, but I'm in love with it so much, I don't know it's influencing me anymore, you know? Like, I think the more you enjoy creating stuff, the less you're concerned with how much things are affecting you from the outside. Like, there's nothing wrong with being affected by other bands, but I don't know. Like, I'm sure everything I love, influences me somehow. Scotland has a lot of good music, a lot more than Wales. This is where I'm from.
When yous are playing, yous have brought a lot of bands through that have now became following, and when they're putting on support bands, I'm following them, I'm following their support bands and their support bands. Yous introduced me to Fontaines DC's, so many bands, man. Purposely done drunk and passed over.
Oh, yeah, thanks very much.
I want to ask you, you were at the Barrowlands and you did covers like Mariah Carey and Celine Dion. Are they like, why?
Two things. One is that they're not covers. They're just me and Bowen singing them to each other. Secondly, why the fuck not?
No, exactly. That's what I was saying. I loved it. It's amazing.
No.
And we had, and also.
So I got an actual answer before you come at me with another question. Is that we do it to break the bullshit behind being on a stage. There's a danger. It's quite narcissistic, isn't it? Me sitting here talking to you guys with a microphone, getting paid for it, doing Q&As. It's like being on stage with a band. It's really easy to forget that you're all just 5 boys wearing men's suits, just enjoying yourselves. So we try and break that kind of mythology of the rock god, because it's bullshit, it doesn't exist. And also try and get away from the punk thing by singing Mariah Carey. It's also a classic tune, and I think it should be listened to all year round, not just for 1 month of the year. What else did we sing at Barrowlands? What's your fucking problem with it?
No, I don't have a problem. I was just asking you.
I'm joking. What was your other one?
Yeah, so it's quite incongruous from... I love Mariah Carey and Celine Dion and your music.
Thank you.
And my first question before all this was, what does it feel like to play Glastonbury? And are you playing this year?
It was all right and no. No, Jake. We're not playing Glastonbury this year because we're going to be headlining it next year. Unless, of course, Mariah Carey. No, so we're not playing this year, no, definitely not. We are doing another festival. I really wanted to go and just take mushrooms with that guy. But yeah, Glastonbury was something that had built up in my head. I went for 9 years before we played, and every year I begged our booking agent to try and get us to play, and they didn't. And it just felt like it was the perfect time to play for the first time on the stage that I love the most, at the time I love the most. It just aligned, everything aligned, and it's something that I will take with me to my grave as a beautiful thing. That and Barrowlands. Hello. All right.
All right. How do you think like the tour kind of life has changed you as a person, like mentally and whatever else?
I don't know. I try not to overthink, because to do that I'd have to think about what I'd be like if I wasn't touring. I know that I'm in a better place now. It's taught me patience and it's taught me balance. One of the things that you can't do at 35 whilst touring is be imbalanced, because you get ill really quickly and you're shit on stage and it's just not very good for anyone. So it's taught me balance and it's taught me patience, yeah. And also that, like, every European country has a different concept of what a toilet is. Every country is completely different. There's no order to fucking toilet manufacturing. They're all so different. I just think that's weird. It's like a common thing. You just think that there would be one kind of toilet, but every country in the world seems to have different kind of toilets.
First off, I'd like to thank you for doing this, and also.
Are you sure?
The
toilets.
The toilets, yeah, they're very important. So there. When you were talking about the importance of examples people have given you about how to make up the patchwork of your mental health, there's something that you said in an interview like 2 years ago about how you always wanted to come across as truthful as you could be. And tonight you've kind of exemplified that, and that's something that I've taken on board, and I'd like just basically say thank you for that.
Pleasure.
And the second thing is, what experience have you had in your kind of musical career that you think that Joe at 15 would be just find it so unbelievable that you got to experience that?
That's a good one. Shit. Being in a studio with Mike Skinner would be one. I was a big fan of the Streets when I was 16, and I then ended up, working with him and working with other people. You get to a level where you can just be like, I really want to work with that person. And they're like, yeah, we'll get in contact. There's something really cool about that. I think working with people, like meeting, like you meet people at festivals backstage and it's kind of, it's all right. I always find that it's important to meet your heroes and see what they're really like. But working with them's another level. I think that's fucking amazing. I can't say who yet. But yeah. That and touring itself is magic. Just being able to travel the world with your mates. That is pretty cool, isn't it? Has anyone got any good questions? I'm joking. It's a joke. It's a joke. Fucking hell. Anyone? Yeah, you.
Has there been any kind of major event in your life that's made you want to sort of target toxic masculinity as a theme and deal with that?
Is there any events in my life that have brought up the idea of toxic masculinity? Is that what you're asking? Yeah? Yeah, loads, man. I think grief is something that's quite a violent post-traumatic stress thing with everyone. Like, I thought that I was quite an open man that was in touch with his feelings. And I thought I was quite honest about that. But when losing my old dear and my daughter, I was in conflict with the fact that I struggled with how I really was feeling. And I found myself saying shit like, yeah, I'm fine, you know. Why was I saying that? I'll just, I'll go back to work, I'll start touring again, it'll be fine, Trying to fix things around me instead of fixing myself. So yeah, it came in that form. It also comes in the form of violence. Like, I had a very loving childhood, but I still found myself fighting a lot. Still found myself in trouble a lot. And that came through a lack of expression and a fucking overwhelming sensation of boredom. And there's something that's misaligned with me as a man, where I thought I was a lot better than I was. And I was actually, I think the more ignorant you are of how affected you are by the pressures of what it is to be a man, the more kind of stereotypically toxic you are. Not necessarily outwardly, but toxic to yourself, suffocating yourself of how you truly feel and things like that. And also being toxic outwardly, being an arsehole to people. I was a really passive-aggressive boyfriend when I was younger. I was very scared. I had abandonment issues. And I would be kind of jealous and rubbish to girlfriends, And that was all through just not accepting that I was terrified of being left alone. Because I was a small boy still, because I hadn't recovered from losing my mum when she was 16, and she had a stroke. I didn't come to terms with that. So I stayed 16. I stayed this little scared young man that just wanted to be held by his mum all the way through till, a lot older. So these are all things. It's not about beating yourself up because you're a man and you're doing things wrong. It's about accepting that maybe you're just not being kind to yourself and you're allowing other people to dictate how you want to be as a man. Because you can be a man, that's all right. It's just don't allow other people to dictate how you decide to love yourself and go forward and be productive and treat other people with respect. So, yeah, I think any sort of traumas, you can fall into the habits of what other people expect of you, which is bullshit. Thank you.
Okay, well, listen, this has been great. And one more question, and then I think we've got to wrap it up.
It was just to ask, what would your desert island disc be?
Astral Weeks by Van Morrison.
Good choice.
Thank you. Yeah, I think Astral Weeks, it's my favourite album, but then you don't want to get bored of your favourite album. I'll tell you what, something that I really don't like Gabba, like a Ministry of Sound Gabba mix of 60 songs. So it's really long and it makes time go slower. Astral Weeks, yeah. Thank you.
All right. Thanks for coming, everybody. A big round of applause for Joe Talbot.
Thank you, Alan. Yeah.
Joe Talbot, thank you so much for joining us here on the show. Alan McGee, such a thrill to have you, even in this limited capacity. You are a giant in my musical life. Listeners, if you enjoyed today's show, there are some similar episodes that I thought you might be into. Definitely check out Proto Martyr in conversation with Parquet Courts, both bands that have some real crossover with IDLES. Also, Gang of Four's Andy Gill in conversation with St. Vincent.
Thanks so much to Barris Art and Design for hosting this event, to Matt Sadowski of Altwaves Records who helped set it up, and to Nadar Shahzad of Blue Audio who recorded it.
Our producer here on the Talkhouse Podcast, also the man popping out of his pants, is Mark Yoshizumi. The Talkhouse Podcast theme was written and performed by The Range. Catch the Talkhouse on socials at Talkhouse. And definitely check our events tab. We have some cool Instagram live talks coming down the pipeline. Till next week, I'm Ellie Einhorn.
I'm Josh Modell.
Peace. And the importance of being idols.